I've been working on this project 24/7 for almost 5 months now, and so without further ado, here it is. Alright, so this is all online, completely free use. I don't even put up advertisements or anything like that. It helped me a lot if you liked the video, just to help us get the word out on what we're trying to do. But, otherwise, feel free to just, check it out, play with it, have a good time. Sometimes I think about people abusing their media influence, like Elon Musk buying Twitter and then changing its algorithm to promote his own tweets. And there's this problem that when this stuff happens, you don't even know that it's being manipulated. So what I wanted was not just an independent company that, was publishing my media, but really something where I could open the box and explicitly understand what it was actually doing. But when you want complete control over everything that's happening, the next step is to go open source and do everything self-hosted. And that's one of those things where it technically works, and technically you could spin up your own AWS box and maintain it and dig through someone else's medium maintained open source code. It honestly just seemed too inconvenient. And if it's too inconvenient for me, then it's definitely too inconvenient for somebody who's non-technical. What I really wanted was something that was super easy to use and something where you could just go to the website and immediately start looking at headlines. But then if you wanted to dig deeper and deeper into it, you can really do as much customization as you want to manage. For a lot of the adjustments, you won't actually need to know any coding, but by the end of the video, I'll explain a little bit more about how the software works and how to actually build up your own config from scratch. So when you look at the homepage, the first thing you see is a lot of the top headlines, and these are really the top stories that are getting reported by a lot of different news sources. Below that, you'll see some posts made by users, and then below that, you'll see some more headlines, followed by some random news about technology. So what makes this website really interesting is the show code button in the upper right-hand corner. And so what this does is this actually shows you the source code of everything that's used to render your news feed on the left. Now you can rewrite this whole thing completely from scratch, but I want to keep things simple to start. So we'll look at some of the easiest adjustments you can make when you visit the website for the first time. This right here thing called article score is how the newsfeed decides what articles to show at the top of the page. So if something has a higher score, it'll be at the top of the page, first thing that you see. And if something has a lower score, it'll get hidden at the bottom and you'll probably never even see it. Now there are a bunch of different factors that go into the score, and these numbers control how important each of the factors is. So if I go in here and I edit one of these numbers, what this will do is it'll super prioritize the most recent articles. And so if I go in and I try this, I can see that it put all of the most recent news at the top. Now I can adjust these numbers to decide how important I actually want each of these factors to be. So if I want to prioritize the most recent news, but only a little bit extra, I can change this number just a little bit, and it'll still increase the priority of the most recent news, but it'll keep some of the relevancy of the other ranking factors as well. Now let's take a look at the bottom of this code area. What we see here is all of the sections that actually get rendered in the web page. So here you see this thing that says headlines, And what that does is it displays the title headlines at the top of the page. Then there's this default feed intro box, which is the box right here. And then finally, there's this thing render headline news, which actually shows the articles. If you're into web development, you can actually just put any React component in here and it'll render it into the page. So if I go ahead and I make some changes here, let's say I change this headlines title to something else, then it'll show them in the feed. I'm also going to remove this intro box since we don't need that anymore. And now I'm going to go ahead and save my new config. I'm just going to make up a username and password here. We don't actually use the email address, so I'm just going to put in a fake one. But at some point, if we start getting spam, we might ask people to verify their account. Next up, at the top of the feed, we have all the newspapers that we use to get the stories from. So if I don't like Yahoo News, I can just go ahead and remove it from the config. Also, what's kind of neat here is this post string gets you all the user-created content. And now that we've gone through the basics, let's try doing something a little bit spicy. We have all these ranking factors here, and we've seen that you can adjust the weights of each of them. But if you want, you can actually just write your own ranking factor from scratch. So if for some reason I'm extra interested in news articles with very long titles, I can go ahead and write that myself and then add that to the ranking score. Now if I go ahead and reload the page, I'll see the same basic ranking, but you can see that it's super prioritized articles that have really long titles. Remember that for this new ranking factor, I can write any program in Clojure, so I can truly put anything I want in here. Let's go ahead and let's write a program that's a little bit more complicated. I can then add that score from this function directly into the ranking algorithm and immediately see how it affects the feed. Alright, so believe it or not, we're actually ready to write our own news feed entirely from scratch. So we're going to start out with this data source's news articles. What this does is it says grab all the articles written by these newspapers and then make them accessible under the name news articles. We use the published feed for the newspaper to grab the list of articles, so if there's something missing from this list, it's probably not in the newspaper's published feed, even though it might be published on their website. And now in order to show the articles, we're just going to say div, which is a container for the feed, h2 articles, which displays the title all articles into the page, and then render list of articles, news articles, which actually shows all of the articles that we've asked for. If I go ahead and try this, I can see we have the text followed by all the news articles. But already we can see that that's too much info and it's hard to get a handle on. When we see our feed, it's just this unorganized mess of stuff. So how do we make it better? Let's start by sorting the articles so that the most recent ones come first. And so if we sort by most recent, we see this neatly ordered list of news. Now you can truly use anything you want to sort these, but I find it's easiest to create a numerical score for each article. Sort of like a 1 to 10, how good is this article, and then sort the articles by that score. It's nice because it gives us an easy way to combine different information that we care about. For example, if we want to see recent news, but also upvoted news, we could do and then sort by that scoring. Now if you look at the homepage, you'll notice that the top headlines were news stories that were reported by a bunch of different newspapers. And so something neat we can do is we can group news articles that are about the same basic story together. So if Chris Rock gets slapped at the Oscars and 7 different newspapers report about it, we can put all those articles in the same group of stuff, and then we can kind of view them together. This is super useful for deduplication, but also for ranking, because we can make a guess about how important a news event is based on the number of different newspapers that report on it. Alright, so in order to get this clustered information, we just add cluster to our data source thingy at the top, and then instead of getting back a list of articles, we get back a list of articles, where each entry is a list of related stories. We can then sort the clusters and then use render clusters to render them into the page. It can be tricky to properly score clusters, so something I like to do is use the sum of the article scores for each article in the cluster. I also like to deduplicate the news sources, so that each newspaper can only contribute one article to the overall score. Alright, so let's build something new and have some fun. So right now, at this very moment, I want to know, what is the hot gossip going on in Hollywood? To start, we'll need some news stories that focus on entertainment and celebrities. Now I'm going to cluster similar articles together and then show the stories reported by the most news sources into the page. This is pretty good, but a lot of the articles aren't really what we're after. I want to know about Tom Sandoval's breakup, but I don't want to hear an announcement for every new movie that's coming out. The Hollywood Reporter just reports on movies and not gossip. So I can actually use the Hollywood Reporter as a tool to filter out news that isn't juicy. Next thing I notice is that most of the articles about movies have quotes around the movie title. So I'm just going to add a little thing that reduces the score of those articles. The Hollywood Gossip actually looks like it has a lot of spicy stories, so I'm going to bump the ranking for that as well. Now we can see here that our feed is actually pretty good. There's only a few top items here, but we can see how good our ranking is by looking through all the garbage it pushed to the bottom of the feed. Just for fun, I'm also going to include pictures. You can actually customize a lot of the UI elements too, but I won't go through all of the details now. That's it for today. I'm going to be posting more tutorials here on this channel, so definitely subscribe if you want to learn how to do more.